I see folks are beginning to arrive, so we'll get started in just a minute as folks finish connecting to this webinar. So we'll start momentarily. Just give us a few seconds. Okay, folks, we're going to get started. Respect everyone's time. Thank you for joining us. This is the National Community Action Partnership webinar called Forging a Pathway to Excellence. In today's webinar, we'll be talking about the Pathways to Excellence program. So we're really excited to have this opportunity to bring that to you. My name is Aaron Wicks. I'm the Vice President for Organizational Capacity Building here at the partnership. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Mary Beth Schneber-Remrev, who is the Director for Organizational Capacity Building, as well as Taylor Daniel, our Senior Associate for Learning and Dissemination. Together, the three of us support the Pathways to Excellence program. So if you have any questions or just want to follow up with someone and have a one-on-one conversation, please feel free to reach out to any of us. We would be happy to talk with you some more about the program. And our email addresses are provided on the slide here. They're also provided at the end of the presentation, and they're also available on the partnership website. So we try to make ourselves available to you. So please reach out. We do want to remind everyone that this is in Zoom webinar format. So if you have any questions or comments, please use the chat function, and we will monitor that and try to address those as we go. And certainly feel free to drop a greeting to everyone else in the chat. Just let us know who's there and how things are going. We hope everyone's having a good day across our network. We know there are always challenges, and do appreciate the time that you're taking to join us today. Okay, so we'd like to start with the promise of community action, because this is what centers us and grounds us in our work. So you can join me if you want to, or just, say it to yourself. Maybe sing it to yourself if you've ever heard the jingle. I will spare you that, though, and just recite it. Community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. And because we uphold that promise, we feel that every community in our country deserves the best community action agency possible to support that community to fulfill this promise. We'd also like to take a moment to invite everyone to make a land acknowledgement. If you've been on some of our webinars in the past few months, you'll note that this is a regular practice here at the partnership to interrupt our daily activities and acknowledge that the land that we live on, the land that sustains us, is land that has been tended to and has given sustenance to and has been the home of a number of peoples across this continent. And we want to acknowledge that with this acknowledgement. And if you need more information about the history of your own area, there's a link there where you can do that. So I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting, or at least my participation in this meeting, is being held on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee people. And I pay my respect to elders both past and present who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. And we'd like to invite you to make a similar acknowledgement and consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that have all converged to bring us together today. So we appreciate you taking a moment to make that acknowledgement. So let's talk a little bit about our agenda today. Our focus here is on excellence in community action, and more specifically, how the community action standards of excellence and the Pathways to Excellence program can be a resource for your agency. So we'll start off by talking kind of broadly about what it is we mean when we're talking about excellence in community action, and why should we be talking about it now? Don't we already have enough on our plate? We'll also say a little bit about the standards of excellence, where they come from, what they mean, how they're different from, like organizational standards that you're probably very familiar with. We'll talk about the Pathways to Excellence program, because it's a program of the partnership that we're very excited to be relaunching this year. And we have several agencies already participating in the program, and we'd like to invite others to join them. So we'd like to share that information with you. And then we'll conclude with some resources so that you can do a little bit of exploring on your own after this webinar, and continue your learning about the Pathways program as well as the standards of excellence. So we want to start with a thought, sort of a deep thought, but one that's very true, and that is this idea that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I know that in community action, we're very familiar with that concept, right? Because many of our customers, certainly many of us in our own lives, have been on our own journeys to self-actualization, to paying off student loans, whatever, however you want to define the journey. It can seem overwhelming, but they all start the same way. They start with that first step forward. And we like to use this concept to remind us that the goals that we seek are always within reach if we think about them as proceeding along a path. And if we take that first step, we're that much closer. And so we like to encourage you to think of excellence in that way. It's not some big perfect thing that's out there. It's a step away, and then another step after that, because it's an ongoing journey. And so we hope you'll invite us here at the partnership to work with you on your own agency journey towards excellence. So a little more in terms of what we mean when we talk about this journey towards excellence. And I mentioned the standards of excellence and the organizational standards. So let's start by kind of putting those in context a little bit. And then we'll talk about what excellence really means in our network. The organizational standards, which folks should be familiar with, those are the we call them the org standards often. Those are sort of the required operational thresholds or minimums for our network. Those are not standards of excellence. Those are basic things that we should all be doing, to be effective community action agencies. But they certainly don't guarantee that we're operating at our best. They just ensure that we're doing all the things that we should be doing. And so the question is, after we've sort of gotten there, after we've said, okay, yeah, we meet all the org standards, we're doing okay. What's next? Where do we go from here? And that's where we like to talk about moving towards excellence. Because as I said earlier, our belief across our network is not that families should have to relocate to find opportunity because maybe their community doesn't have it, but somewhere else they can go in the United States and find opportunity. Certainly, many people have done that. But we believe that every community should be a thriving and healthy community. And who's going to lead and who's going to hold that promise to make sure that that's the case? Community action. And so how do we fulfill that promise? We do it by making sure that every community action agency is performing at the highest possible level. And so we want to support that effort and make sure that every community has the absolute best community action agency advocating for everyone in the community and making sure that the resources are there for families to obtain the opportunities that they need to achieve their goals. And we see this not only as a commitment, fulfilling our promise, but also as an ongoing process, a way that we operate in community action, that we're always moving towards excellence. We're always seeking to become better. And so I'd like to ask my colleague, Mary Beth, to say a little bit more about what excellence means and what it looks like in our network. Mary Beth.
Great, thanks so much, Aaron. Thanks for teeing this up so well. So you may be wondering, so we're talking about excellence, what exactly does that look like in practice in a community action agency? And that is articulated very well in our standards of excellence that we have adapted specifically for the Community Action Network. These standards of excellence represent 35 of the very best practices of the very best community action agencies. And we recognize that the standards are optimal real-world administrative and operational benchmarks that we believe every community action agency can strive for. Now, these practices are not just something that some folks dreamed up. They are based on, if you're familiar with the Malcolm Baldrige criteria or the Baldrige Award, that is an excellence award that has been around for many years and certifies agencies of excellence in all kinds of sectors, in the private sector, in the public sector, in nonprofits, in healthcare, in education. We have really taken the lead from the Baldrige criteria and the Malcolm Baldrige Award and adapted those best practices, those best internal operational practices to be specific to community action. So our standards of excellence, as I said, they're tailored to us and they are updated every couple of years because we recognize that the idea of what is excellent today may not be what's excellent tomorrow. I mean, what's excellent today is, not what was excellent, 5 years ago. So these standards are updated every couple of years with input from our Excellence Commission, who is made up of community action experts and some award-winning agencies as well on that committee who really spell out these specific practices that community action agencies can strive for in their day-to-day operations. So we're not going to go through all 35 of the standards today. We'll put a link to the standards of excellence in the chat for you so that you can check them out yourself. But broadly, to give you an idea of the kinds of categories of practices that the standards cover, we look at items like leadership, like how an agency goes about its strategic planning and sets its strategic direction for itself, how it focuses deeply on its customers, its constituents, and its partners, and both their internal customers and their external customers. Obviously, key to community action at our core, we care deeply about measuring, analyzing, and managing our performance overall. And that's a really key concept in Pathways to Excellence in particular. We firmly believe you cannot improve what you don't measure. So you really have to begin to measure anything in order to begin that journey towards improvement. Human resources, gosh, we know how important human resources are today, don't we? And and some of the challenges that we have around workforce. So we have some best practices spelled out in category 5. We also look at how agencies actually manage their internal processes. How do you approach project management? How do you approach some of your fiscal practices? All of those kinds of practices are in category 6. And then ultimately, we do all of this work because we hope to see results. And Aaron just put in the chat about trended data, right? Over time, hopefully what you see as you're going through a process of looking at these standards and seeking to incorporate the practices that are articulated in them, that over time you will see improvements in your results overall. Both for your customers, but also based on your own internal metrics of success, right? You likely have some measures internally that you track to ensure that your agency is operating well. So we hope that through this process, you see improvements in your results, both external and internal. So now we'd like to introduce you to the Pathways to Excellence program. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, great, these 35 practices are awesome, but gosh, this is a lot. And where do I start? And that is where Pathways to Excellence comes in. We see Pathways to Excellence as empowering our local agencies in their pursuit of excellence through what is a really intentional process of assessing themselves against the standards of excellence, identifying gaps in the implementation of those standards, planning, and then taking some action to make improvements in the agency, which might include capacity building, and then doing some further evaluation, and then going through the process all over again. And the hope is that that will help agencies to institutionalize and systematize these best-in-class practices from the Community Action Network. So through the Pathways to Excellence program, how this all works in the program, we start by teaching the standards of excellence. It provides an opportunity for agencies to learn about the standards of excellence, their requirements, how implementation actually works, what deployment looks like, what kind of documentation you use to ensure that you're actually implementing the standard. That's a key component of the standards of excellence, or of Pathways to Excellence, excuse me. And then once you know what the standards are and you understand them, you can then hopefully begin to look at your processes and begin to implement and institutionalize some of those standards. But furthermore, in Pathways to Excellence, we believe it's very important that agencies do an assessment of themselves against these standards. Again, you can't improve what you don't measure. So measure your agency against these certified standards and identify where you might have some gaps. And from there, then you would be able to identify where you need to make improvements and then hopefully make those improvements in your agency. Well, within Pathways to Excellence, we call that process a self-study process. And in that self-study process, you're really documenting your agency commitment to excellence. And from there, depending on the level of participation in Pathways to Excellence, you can receive comprehensive feedback from community action experts from around the network that can guide you on how to improve your implementation. They'll recognize strengths that you have in your agency based on what you identify in your self-study. And that feedback can hopefully, again, help you or help your agencies to implement some of the practices articulated in the standards. And then ultimately, Pathways to Excellence, one of the key components of this program is that we recognize community action agencies of excellence. We actually give an award to agencies of excellence who we can see and verify have institutionalized and implemented these 35 standards of excellence well within their agencies. So that's an overview of the Pathways to Excellence program. We're going to talk a little bit more about our approach to that in a minute, but I was just talking through this a minute ago that really at the core of the program, what we're doing hopefully is supporting your agency to go through that intentional process of continuous improvement to fully deploy those standards of excellence in your agency. You guys are going to do the heavy lifting. The partnership is here to support, but hopefully what you find is that you're able to go through this continuous quality improvement effort to fully deploy the standards. So with that, Erin, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about, is this really the moment for excellence?
All right, thank you, Mary Beth. And my colleague Taylor is going to walk us through the different tiers, because we've already talked about some of the elements of the program, and we really do want to share those with you so you can kind of think about what might be a good fit. But I imagine that one of the questions that has come up, maybe in your organization, maybe at maybe at others, but is this really the right time? Because this is a question that that can come up on any given day, given all that we deal with in our communities. But certainly, with all that has happened over the past several months, years, with the pandemic, as well as just challenges that our communities face, long-term economic challenges, other forces of division that community action has kind of worked to try to overcome. Given all of that, is this the right time? Like, is this really where we should be focusing our efforts? And of course, you can imagine our answer is yes, but there's a very specific reason that we want to invite you to kind of jump in and lean in and say, this is the time. And that is that we've been very fortunate at the Community Action Partnership, because of our kind of view of the whole network. We've been very fortunate to see a lot of what has happened across the network. Certainly not all of the amazing things that happen every day. That would be wonderful. That's kind of what keeps me going personally, is just knowing that we're really doing amazing things every day. But from what we have seen, here's something that I can say with very high confidence. The community action agencies that have really kind of persevered the best, the ones that have been able to pivot quickly, respond to changing needs, innovate, when new services have been needed, develop new partnerships. The ones that have really been able to navigate any challenges that have come up. Those have been the ones that, whether they, have implemented the standards in a formal way, or maybe they just, have some really good processes in place. They operate at a consistently high level. And kind of the moral of the story is, when you are intentional about implementing these standards, when you are intentional about continuous quality improvement, all of these challenges that we face are just much easier to navigate. Resources are much easier to acquire. Partners are much more likely to knock on your door rather than you having to track them down. So we think, yes, this is the time, because our communities need that leadership. They need community action to identify that vision and then make it a reality. And strong agencies can make that happen. So the challenge, though, is if you think this is the right time, what would it look like to get started? Because, participating in a webinar, reading through the standards, and then saying, okay, I'm in, let's do it. That's a good energy level to have, but we want to caution that it's not quite that easy. And so we want to invite everyone who is thinking about, making a more intentional journey towards excellence to think about a few things: leadership buy-in within your staff, board approval, but probably we want to go broader than that and really talk about board engagement, because it's really about making sure your board is supportive on the long haul. And then if you do decide to take the plunge, being really thoughtful about which tier, which entry point in the Pathways program would be right. So I'm going to talk about a couple of these, and then I'll hand it off to Taylor to talk a little bit more about the tiers. In terms of leadership buy-in, even before you sort of make a concerted effort to pursue excellence, you really want to take a team approach. And we strongly encourage agencies. As a matter of fact, participation in the program requires that you identify a formal excellence team, because this team will be responsible for implementing, directing, and leading these efforts in your agency. And when we talk about the different tiers, and particularly the higher level ones, the silver, gold, and platinum, this team is the one that's really going to be doing the legwork in terms of looking at your organization in a very deep and honest way, and assessing where are we as an organization, and where do we need to go? What's our plan for going forward? That has to be done by a team, because there's so many different aspects of the standards that touch different parts of your organization. And we do want to encourage you to think of this team as maybe going beyond the senior leadership team. Certainly your executive director or president and CEO have an important role in that team. But thinking beyond that executive suite, and including frontline staff, middle management staff, board members, and in some cases you may have some outside experts or consultants that you work with. Those are all potential members of an excellence team that can really perform at a high level. And you just want to be sure that when you take that team approach, you don't go too big, because a large team can become unmanageable. I'm sure everyone has some experience with a team where you looked around and said, oh, there are too many cooks in the kitchen, this is not going to work. So definitely bring that perspective to the table as you think about who you really need to have on your excellence team. And then we've also mentioned board engagement. And we want to be really clear about this, because participation in the entry level tier of the Pathways program, which we call the bronze tier, that actually requires a formal action by your board. And so, from a check the box perspective, yes, we will ask that you have a formal board resolution where your board says, we, the board of directors, support this agency's participation in the Pathways program. Okay, and we've got a template available that you can use if you want to sort of get some language for what that might look like. And it's a really critical step, because it's a formal step forward in terms of participation in the program. But we definitely want to be sure that you're thinking of this as more than just a checking the box activity. It's really two things that you're doing here. One is you are communicating to the board the strategic direction of the agency. That we are serious, to a greater degree maybe than we have been previously, or maybe just in a more formal way. Let's put it that way. We are serious about becoming one of the best, highest performing agencies in the country. And so we are making that commitment as a staff to get us there. There's also a second direction. It's a two-way commitment, and that is that your board is also committed to that journey, because the journey is not always a straight line. It comes with curves and twists and turns. It comes with bumps along the road. And you want to be sure that your board is there supporting you as you go through those twists and turns. So getting that formal commitment is an important step, but making sure that it really reflects deep engagement and support from your board is critical. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Taylor to talk a little bit about our tiered approach and what these different levels mean, because this is really important for you to think about what's the right fit for our agency given where we are. So Taylor.
Thanks, Aaron. So as Aaron mentioned, that we now have a new tiered approach. This was relaunched when we relaunched the Pathways to Excellence program in last year in 2021. The new tiered approach differs from the previous program because at first there was just a two-pronged approach. It was Pathways to Excellence and the award for, and you can apply for the award for excellence. Now, the new tiered approach allows for each agency to enter their pathways journey or their excellence journey where they are. So here we have 4 tiers. We have the bronze tier, the silver tier, and the gold tier, and the platinum tier. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of the tiers and the requirements and the components of each. So the first tier we'll talk about is the bronze tier. We like to refer to this tier as the commitment to excellence. At the bronze tier, the agency takes the initial steps towards excellence by learning more deeply about the 35 standards of excellence. This level begins moving the agency beyond the threshold of the organizational standards. For our successful completion of the bronze tier, you'll be required to complete and submit a board resolution to finalize your commitment to excellence. We have templates on this. You will also develop a 5-page organizational profile, and then you will have to convene an agency excellence team. The agency excellence team will also complete the Standards of Excellence e-course. And and that's available to the core excellence team. The next tier is the silver tier. And we refer to this as the implementation of excellence. At the silver tier, the agency invests in training staff in the standards of excellence and their documentation. Those participating in the silver tier form a cohort to experience this level together with other agencies who are also enrolled in the silver tier. Also in the silver tier, there will be a staff person that will participate in the Pathways to Excellence implementer training. And part of this year is also TNTA activities, which is also done in a cohort setting. Successful completion of the silver tier consists of completing the online organizational assessment, attending the Pathways to Implementer certification training, completing abbreviated self-study where you focus on 2 to 3 categories. These can be categories that you think you're doing really well at, or categories where you feel like you need to do a little bit more work just to help guide you in the next steps of your process. Then you will also work with peer reviews to assess and draft. Well, peer reviews will also assess and draft a feedback report for that abbreviated self-study that you'll complete in this tier. The next tier is the gold tier. We refer to this tier as the pursuit of excellence. At the gold level, the agency invests in a thorough assessment of its achievement of each of the standards of excellence. The agency participating in a gold tier also form a cohort to experience this tier together. And the gold tier CA participates in a self-study e-course and also TNT activities also done in a cohort. For the gold tier, successful completion of the gold tiers consists of attending training on the self-study process. And that would be your full excellence team. You will participate in training and technical assistance meetings, and you will complete or submit a self-study, and you will receive feedback from our peer experts. And this would be, instead of like silver, you focus on 2 to 3 standards. On this one, in the gold tier, you will focus on all of the standards. And the last tier is the platinum tier. And this is the traditional award for excellence. At the platinum tier, the agency demonstrates its achievement of the standards of excellence. There is an on-site visit where you and the peer experts will go through your self-study, and they will be responsible for confirming your achievement of excellence. This is a 2-year process. It begins by submitting the application, completing a full self-study. As I mentioned, there'll be an on-site visit, scoring of the self-study by peer reviewers, and pin the results. The end result, pinning your results, that is when you would be eligible to achieve the highest honor in community action, which is the award for excellence in community action. That basically affirms that you have implemented and institutionalized the standards of excellence. And so the one more thing that we will touch on as it relates to the award for excellence, and that's the goal of the awards for excellence. We know that community action does great work. And the goal of the award for excellence is to highlight just that. Through this process, we want to give visibility and recognition. We want to lift up the amazing work that's being done across the country and showcase our best organizations. We hope to promote learning through this process. We hope to promote learning and sharing. We want to share the best excellence examples, best practices across the country, and make it easy for every CEA to make the needed improvements to reach those standards. And we understand that the excellence journey is not easy, but it's one that is definitely rewarding and one that is worth the effort. And so with that, I think I should be passing it off to Mary Beth now.
Great, thanks so much, Taylor. And guys, if you have questions or thoughts as we're going, please do put them in the chat. We'd love to hear what you're thinking about. If you have something that you're noodling over, just go ahead and put it in the chat for us. Happy to answer any thoughts or questions you have. So we kind of started here with this idea of what's the difference between organizational standards versus excellence, kind of going from compliance to excellence. And so we just want to tie up that thought here that, you know, as we said when we started, organizational standards are mandatory. They are minimal thresholds that all community action agencies have to meet. We assure that those standards are met through an annual ongoing assessment process that's done both by the agency and then by, usually there's a third-party verification by the state. But those are the minimal thresholds. And the journey towards excellence is where we think the tiered approach to excellence comes in. Taylor talked about the 4 different on-ramps that are available to the network if they would be interested in pursuing excellence and pursuing implementing these practices within their own agencies. This is largely a self-based approach or self-paced approach. And an important point to make is that, you know, compliance is required. Excellence is always voluntary. So, you know, Pathways to Excellence is purely a voluntary program because it's a large commitment. It is a very large commitment of leadership and of the agency. So this is a voluntary program. And then ultimately our award for excellence is where we get to that national recognition and get to really honor those agencies that implement those 35 practices very, very well. So to switch gears on you a little bit and tell you a little bit more about the program and what it costs, this pricing is available on our website. This is our pricing for 2022. If you are interested in joining the Pathways to Excellence program, at the bronze level, there's just a flat fee for enrollment in the program. As Taylor said, at that level, you're getting training on the standards of excellence themselves. And then you are really working to, the agency is working to put into place those foundations that are necessary for future implementation of excellence. At the silver, gold, and platinum tiers, we utilize a a kind of sliding scale based on your total agency revenue. That is what determines your fee for enrollment. You are not required to enter at bronze and then go through silver and then go through gold. You can pick whichever on-ramp you think makes the most sense for you. However, each tier is its own program. So you would have to pay the fee for each tier. If you wanted to participate at the bronze tier and then you completed that and then you wanted to go to the silver, you would pay the fee for both bronze and then silver when you enroll. So if you have any questions about pricing, please do reach out to us. We're happy to talk about that. A little bit more about the enrollment process, just what you can expect. We have an enrollment form. It's a SurveyMonkey that you just give us some basic information about your agency, including how many full-time employees you have, what your annual budget is, what's your service area like. We also ask for your agency strategic plan. And then we do ask at the silver, gold, and platinum tiers for your 990 form. And the reason for that is so that we can verify your total agency revenue to inform what price you pay for the tier. And then the board resolution is also required for silver tier and above. So if you're thinking about enrolling, just want to share, to think ahead about the next time that your board is meeting, and might you need to get this on their agenda now. As Taylor said, we do have a template on our website if you are interested in using that. Once you submit your enrollment form, we will confirm that we have received your materials. We'll let you know if we have everything we need, and then we will generate an invoice for you. Just want to flag that enrollment is not complete until payment is received. So please do be cognizant of your own internal timelines for issuing payments. So Aaron, I think I want to pass to you to talk about a couple of the certifications that are also available through Pathways to Excellence.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Beth. One of the things that we want to highlight about this program is that it's not limited to agencies going through the Pathways program as a whole. We also have professional development opportunities for individual staff. And honestly, this program really depends on individual community action leaders kind of stepping forward and better equipping themselves to either lead their agency or to provide leadership to the network as a whole. And so we have a couple of different options for those of you that may be interested in this type of a participation. One is to consider becoming a Pathways peer reviewer. We've mentioned the Pathways self-study. Well, the self-study is certainly valuable to go through as a process, but the real value add from the program is when you get feedback from peers in the field, not someone here at the partnership reviewing your self-study and saying, okay, well, hey, you may want to look at this, you may want to look at that, but actually getting feedback from other peers at agencies like yours who have been trained in the self-study process and who can provide some insight. So you can become a peer reviewer, and we'll be offering peer reviewer training at our annual convention in New York City at the end of August and beginning of September of this year. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to us and let us know. If you're a current peer reviewer, we'd like to invite you to participate in our peer reviewer refresher training because we've updated the standards. And that's coming up soon. That'll be happening, I believe, May 18th. And we've begun doing some outreach. So you'll be hearing from us soon if you're an existing peer reviewer, because we'd love to have you continue to serve the network in that capacity. Another way that you can participate in the Pathways program as an individual is to become a Pathways implementer. And this is sort of analogous to a Roma implementer. This is training that gives you some insight into what is involved in conducting a self-study, what's involved in planning the quality assurance and quality improvement practices that can move an agency forward. So that even if your agency maybe is not considering participation in the Pathways program, you can still, as an individual, participate in the implementer training. And that can be very valuable to agencies that are looking to develop staff leadership and have staff that can really provide that internal expert perspective. So those are two opportunities we'd like to let you know about. In terms of timelines, because I did mention that we'll be offering the implementer training at our convention, just want to sort of look at the rest of the year, the calendar year, so that folks can maybe think about when would be the right time for them to consider participating. So we are currently seeking enrollment and participation in our silver and gold tiers, because we said those are cohorts. So you learn together with other agencies. And we're looking to launch those cohorts in July. So you've got some time to meet as a team and think about what would be right for your agency. If you'd like some input or perspective on that from us here at the partnership, we'd be happy to talk with you about what might be the right direction, what considerations you need to consider. I did mention the peer reviewer refresher training coming up soon in May. So for those of you that are peer reviewers and you want to continue to be peer reviewers, make sure you register for that refresher training. If you're not yet a peer reviewer, or if you'd like to become an implementer, we'll be offering both of those trainings in the next few months. Implementer training will happen in August. That will be done virtually. So you can do it from the comfort of your office or your home office if you're working from home. And we will be offering peer reviewer training for new peer reviewers on site at our annual convention in New York City at the end of August and first few days of September. Another opportunity that we want to flag for you is if you are representing a state association or a state office, or if you would like to reach out to your state association or state office, they can really play an important role in supporting the statewide network, because we do encourage folks to think about, maybe putting together a state cohort that can go through the program together. So if you have an interest in maybe having a few agencies within your state work together, we find that that's a really effective approach, because chances are you already have some relationships, and in some cases we have seen that some states have made some of their discretionary CSBG funding available for these types of efforts. So certainly not putting any state offices on the line for that. You'll have to talk to your state office about whether that's something they would consider, but we do think that that's a really great way to support building up a statewide network. State associations and state offices may be able to provide, as I said, some funding or some scholarships for some of these opportunities. So we do want you to explore that. They can also help support some of the additional TNTA that would be connected to an excellence journey. So you don't have to feel like you're just doing this alone. We would be more than happy to reach out to your state association or your state office and see if there are new ways that we can partner to make some additional TNTA available to your statewide network. And as we do think about collaborating, we do want to underscore, and I know Mary Beth said this earlier, but I want to just repeat it, that the Pathways program is a voluntary program. So it doesn't work if someone says, hey, everyone is going to do this, whether it's a state office or a state association, or maybe it's an executive director that that's trying to pull together a group and say, come on, we're all going to do this. We love that energy, and we'd love to support those efforts, but it really is important that agencies participate because they want to and because they're committed to it. So just can't emphasize that enough, that it really needs to be a voluntary effort. And we're happy to have those conversations if folks have questions about, what it's going to mean for their agency to go through this process. And before we begin to wrap up, we're almost done, but we do want to take a moment to recognize and celebrate and thank some very important community action leaders, because the Pathways to Excellence program, although it's relaunching this year, it's been in existence in some form for many years. And some of the folks that serve on the Excellence Commission have been integral right from the beginning, because they believe in community action and they believe in strong community action agencies. So we really want to recognize the 9 members of the Excellence Commission. They're listed here on this slide, not just for all of that work going back many years, but particularly for their work over the past year and a half to make sure that this program could once again be available to the network. These folks not only work, full-time positions at their agencies or state associations, but they also devote time to support the network in this way. And it's worth noting that 2 of our commission members, Biz Steinberg and Paul Dole, are CEOs of agencies that have won the award for excellence. So these are folks that that really kind of practice what they preach, and more importantly, they would do just about anything they could to share whatever knowledge or benefits of experience that they've acquired over the years. They want to share that with the network, and that's true of all of our commission members. So just want to thank them and recognize them here. You can see their names on this slide. And I think with that, I will turn it over to Taylor to just kind of wrap things up with some of the resources if you're interested and want to explore a little bit more. Taylor?
Great. So we, on the partnerships website, we have a lot of great resources for the Pathways to Excellence program. So what you can do when you go to communityactionpartnership.com, you can click on the Programs and Initiatives tab. And there you will find a drop down for the Pathways to Excellence program. On our webpage there, you can find all of the information that we just went over. You will be able to find the standards of excellence, also the different breakdowns of the tiers, our price sheet. Also there we have a video of our most recent award recipients, which is UPO. And we also we'll have this video from this, or our video of our relaunch with some of the same information as well. There on our webpage, you can also find Mary Beth Aaron's and I's contact information if you were not able to catch it. And that way, if you have any questions for us, if you don't want to put in the chat, you can always email any one of us and we'll be able to get you the information that you need. Also there, you will find the standards of excellence. It was also put in the chat for you to have a quick link for that as well. But that is also available as a reference for you to look through and kind of just get an idea of how your agency aligns with the 21 standards, the 23, oh my gosh, the number of standards, I can't remember, align with the standards. And so here is also our contact information again. And so we would like to thank you all for joining us today. And we'll be following up with you with an email with this information that we covered today. So thank you.
Okay, and with that, we have a few minutes remaining. If there are any questions or thoughts, we can look to answer those in the chat. I think we also have an evaluation.
We do.
for this workshop that we've put in the chat. We'd love your feedback. Certainly your feedback about this presentation, but also any feedback that you have or questions that you have about the program. Thoughts about how we can make it more valuable and relevant to our network, because that's what we're constantly seeking to do. So I'm not seeing any questions or comments. I'll ask my colleagues, Taylor, Mary Beth, anything else that we need to cover before we wrap up? I'm seeing shaking of heads, and my lip reading skills suggest that the word no was said. So with that, I want to thank all of you that have joined us today. Again, please reach out to us if you have any questions, if you want to just learn a little bit more about the program, talk about any concerns you have. We would love to have that conversation with you. And we're also happy to connect you with others, like members of the Excellence Commission, who can maybe give you a different perspective on what their experience has been. So we're always here to support you. We thank you for the wonderful and important work that you all do for our network. Please continue to be safe, and thank you for all you do to keep the promise of community action. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thanks.